All right, we've got one more email. Hey guys, longtime listener, first time writer. I'm excited to say I'm setting up my first album on CD Baby. As I'm setting up tracks, I see where you list featured artists, but I have a question. I don't see where you attribute that this guy played bass, that guy played drums, etc. Am I supposed to type that into the featured artist field like Ringo Starr drums, or are you just supposed to put Ringo Starr in that line and you designate somewhere else that he was drummer on the track? Also, I assume I put the band's name in the artist field, but do I then list myself by name as primary artist? As a small suggestion, it'd be great if for pages like that you had a sample that newbies like me could look at. Just trying to get everybody the right credits. Thanks, William. Chris, you could probably speak to this more concisely than I can because I know you've experienced this in different degrees with your music, with collaborations, but also I know you've written some articles about this
Yeah.
for our blog.
Well, the short answer is if you are a band and you release with your band name, that's the artist name. You don't have any featured artists. You're not a featured artist. Your drummer's not a featured artist. It's just you're a band and that's it. And unfortunately, there's no great place to park the metadata about the session players or even the band members. There's other places you can be putting that information online, and you should. But the metadata that accompanies your music files to Spotify and Apple Music don't contain that detailed. I wish it would. That's really
Yeah.
a cool way of organizing music. Unfortunately, we're not there. So just put your band name.
Yeah. That everything you described is what would show up in the liner notes. And there's still no solution on these platforms for liner notes. Speaking of feeling like interactivity went to a certain point and stopped, it feels like the liner notes started making progress. Like Spotify turned on a producer field and then they stopped. It's like there was so much discussion about solving the liner note problem, whether it be like in a service like Jaxsta that was trying to be like the IMDb for music. It's just weird that it doesn't exist. It's like we
Well,
have it for movies.
shelf space is unlimited. So Spotify can house billions of tracks, but we still haven't figured out how to replicate in the digital age what you could fit on a vinyl fold out.
Yeah, it drives me crazy because especially for trying to find recording engineers or people that have mixed or produced certain things. Because that's another thing. Speaking of interactivity, I thought would have happened by now is that if you've listened to this podcast for a long time, it's no surprise that I like Guns N' Roses, but I'm a guitar player, so I like Slash a great deal. It's like you would think I'd be able to click on do a search for everything that Slash played on. We have the technology to do that. Why can't we do that?
Well, here's the reason why, because not even deep down, on the surface, most music listeners don't give a shit. And
How
if
dare
they
they?
did, the platforms would develop these complicated tools to network all the music together by player. But no one cares, which is why we don't have that. Only geeks like us care about that.
So the hot take is that music platforms have stopped innovating because music fans don't give a crap.
About that particular, they want the music they want when they want it, where they want it, but they don't care who played on the song. In fact, sometimes they don't even care who the artist name is. It's just a utility. There'll be another song to take that space.
Oh, my
Sorry,
heart
that's the downer
hurts.
news for
That's right. No,
Wah,
yeah,
wah.
yeah. Chris, I think we can make positive change in this area. It is an interesting problem. In all seriousness, it's like I get it that not everybody opened the liner notes and read them on albums. But, thinking back when, the heyday for my band was in the CD world, in the mid to late 90s when we were selling a lot of records, I was surprised how many times at a show talking to a fan where they would reference something in the liner notes because there was no internet. It was very young. The internet was young, so it's like if you wanted information you had to look in the album art, I guess. So now they just Google it whenever they want, I guess. But that information, it makes it hard for other artists to, I think, find music made by certain people. And it is time that people that are working on records get the proper credit they deserve. I mean, I would love a playlist that highlights every track a certain producer ever made. That would be amazing. I'd listen to it all day long, because that's the hard thing. It's like I like what this producer did with this album, and to find other albums because a lot of times it's cross genre that like Daniel Lanois did. Obviously, a lot of U2, but then he did Emmylou Harris Wrecking Ball. That album's amazing.
Right.
And then he did one for Willie Nelson that also is a very cool album that I'm not a Willie Nelson fan, but I like that album just
Well, he
because of the
produced a Bob
production.
Dylan record too, didn't he? Didn't
Yes,
he do
yeah.
Time Out of Mind?
So it's a
Yeah.
lot of those things where it's like it crosses genres and you just can't find it
You know, I
someday.
sometimes when I talk about like the average music fan who like doesn't care about things, I'm actually thinking of my parents. And when I was a little kid, I'd go through like their vinyl collection and they'd have all sorts of great stuff, Pink Floyd, the Beatles, whatever. And think like the Eagles, like forget about like, oh, who played the horn section on this Eagle song? Like my parents probably couldn't even name more than one of the Eagles. Like so
That's true.
the level of detail they cared about in credits was extremely limited to barely more than the artist name is what they cared about.
Yeah. We got to get them to care, Chris. We got to get them to care. All right. Well, William, you started a good conversation. If you would like to weigh in on a topic, something we discussed, if you want to call in with a question, you can do so 360-524-2209. It's on the screen right there, right below. Or you can email us at podcast@cdbabypodcast.com and join the conversation.